Kita sekarang bisa masuk. Kita masih lihat. Lihat.
Marbella family.
Marbella family.
And Julia,
Yes, that's me.
are you with
It's,
Marbella?
Yeah, Marbella. Dari Marbella.
Yeah,
Right.
Marbella.
Yes,
Oh,
okay, thank you. Halo, good morning. Oke. Kita sudah di sini, gua di belakang aja, men. We're ready. It's very nice. Kita ada di sini. Siap-siap jalan. Say hello. Oh. Oke, our group. Oke. Bismillah, kita jalan. Kita sudah jalan, kawan-kawan. Dengan bis ini ya, di sini bisa 15 orang. Nyaman banget bisnya. Ini ada Mas Aron di sini. Dan Vidya di sana ada. Yang ini ada orang lagi juga. Oke, berapa menit gitu perjalanan? Sekitar 1 jam, 2 jaman ya kira.
1 jam, 2 jam ada.
Ya, oke. 2 jam perjalanan. Oke, bismillah, semoga kita selamat. Oke, mantap coy.
The schedule ahead of us, a lot of driving and a lot of sightseeing points. So I hope we have a good day together. Yeah, I see most of you have seatbelts. I have to remind you that it's mandatory in Iceland to have seatbelts at all time. So please have them on at all times. We will start now heading west, and our first stop is 1 hour away. It's a shop and there are restrooms and toilets there, and that's what I wanted to remind you on this tour to Iceland, and welcome to Reykjavik.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where you come from? Reykjavik is of course the capital of Iceland.
Came a long way.
It is there are roughly 200,000 persons living in the sea. This is the seat of the government and the governmental institutions, all major service institutions like the University Hospital of Iceland, which is the largest employer in Reykjavik, and then and the other service institutions, of course. Here in the middle of the Atlantic, we have up to 100 flights a day to Iceland, mainly from the States, from several cities in the United States, and also many towns in Europe. So, and of course, as a capital, there are a lot of embassies here. So the town is quite international. Conferences are often held, and international conferences, of course, to recover after the COVID. But over the COVID time, we were quite isolated for 1.5 years. But regaining our former strength. Winter month to April, May, when it's colder than today, we heat the city up with geothermal hot water. There is a lot of hot water under the city, of course, and there is a geothermal station, two actually, that serve the city with hot water and electricity. Iceland is a net producer of electricity, and only 5% of the electricity that is produced in Iceland is used by the households. 80% of the electricity is used by the aluminium smelters that are situated here in Iceland. So we can say that we export electricity by changing bauxite to aluminium. The Atlantic Ocean, and it is the meeting place of the tectonic plates, the American plate and the Euro-Asian tectonic plate. And those tectonic plates are drifting apart gradually every year by 2 centimeters on average. And the only place you can view the Atlantic Ridge above sea level is here in Iceland. And that's the reason for this island being the most volcanic place in the world. So this is the basis that you have to understand before we start talking about geology. And in the hills in front of us is the largest suburb in Reykjavik. It's called Breiðholt, or the White. This is a community known for its love of horses. Many of the people here, they own horses, and they actually started moving out here from and orthopedic problems. And it is at 12 o'clock in front of us, in and around the wood here in front in the valley, with a red roof, and it's about 1400 kilometers in length. In miles, it could be maybe 1,000 miles. And we were driving over yet another salmon river. Salmon fishing is very important for the farmers in Iceland that owns the rivers, and they rent them out. So this is the mountain Asia. It's of palagonite and tough material because it was formed under the ice cap in the ice ages. Just to give you some idea about how Iceland was established, and before the immigration here in the 9th century, it is said that there were no one living here. There were no Inuits here or Eskimos. The people who came to Iceland originally were mainly Scandinavians, and the largest group of them were Norwegians, and then there were also people coming from the British Isles around Scotland and from Ireland. The short version is that the young Vikings seeking for new opportunities went to Ireland, robbed their women, and sailed to Iceland. Because it was actually it were the Vikings that had the knowledge to sail in open seas at the time. They had the navigation skills to do so. And basically they were just people looking for new opportunities. There was a movement of tribes and people at the time. In Norway, they lacked they had local wars, and they lacked new opportunities, new land to exploit. The same was in the islands around Scotland, and even into this area. There was a queen that came here, actually here in this little bay, and she stayed here for 2 years. Her name was Auður Djúpugða, and she was her husband, the king, had been killed in a local war, and she had to flee away with 2 ships, and she landed here, but later on she moved out to the west coast where she settled, and she was one of the first settlers in Iceland. Auður Djúpugða. Djúpugða is a nickname related to her, and probably this Djúpugða meant she was a wise. So there were all kinds of people coming here, both chieftains and common farmers, and that is how Iceland was settled in the 9th century, and the settlement time was over in 930. Then the island was considered full settled, and we actually know who they were who settled here, and where they settled and where they lived, because in the beginning Iceland was just a farmland. There were no communities, there were no towns. Even though the first settler, Ingólfur Arnarsson, moved to this area and raised his farm there, it is not until the 1750s that the area starts to grow as a village, and then as a town, and then as the center for Iceland. And it is only in the beginning of the 20th century that Reykjavík really takes off, because there was no natural harbor there. So it was difficult to have trade, but this was the official side of the authorities.